It's not mine. Okay, well.
Right?
Yeah, I'll stop using the curse words if we're going off mute.
I'm here.
We're all-
Live.
Okay, I'll be nice.
No, August is doing this because he is the host. Right.
Good morning.
But Lillian's gonna be here.
No, she isn't.
Oh, she isn't?
I know, she's not.
I
I know,
am
but
here.
I thought she was gonna chair. I
She is,
Are you
he
right
is
here?
chairing, but
Can you hear me?
the gavel.
Sorry, you got us, Erica.
Mike,
Question, can you guys hear me there? It's Lillian.
Yeah.
We can hear you.
Okay. I am gonna try to, I had COVID this week, so, did not think you guys would want to sit next to me, with COVID, so, although I'm over it, but still. But I'll try to do this by August if it doesn't work for some reason, or,
There you go.
if it's complicated, then I will pass it off.
is this me? Okay. Good morning, everyone. This is Director Huang. I'm going to read the preamble to get us started. In compliance with notification requirements of Ohio's open meeting law and section 101.021 of the codified ordinances of Cleveland, Ohio, 1976, notice of this meeting has been publicly posted. All boards and commissions under the purview of the City Planning Department conducts its meetings according to Robert's Rules of Order. Actions during this meeting will be taken by voice vote. Abstentions from any vote due to a conflict of interest should be stated for the record prior to the taking of any vote. In order to ensure that everyone participating in the meeting has the opportunity to be heard, we ask that you use the raise hand feature before asking a question or making a comment. The raise hand feature can be found in the participants panel on the desktop and mobile version and activated by clicking the hand icon. Please wait for the chair or facilitator to recognize you and be sure to select unmute and announce yourself before you speak. When finished speaking, please lower your hand by clicking on the raise hand icon again and mute your microphone. We will also be utilizing the chat feature to communicate with participants. The chat feature can be activated by clicking the chat button located on the bottom of the WebEx screen. Call-in users can unmute by using *6. Next slide. All meeting activity is being recorded via the WebEx platform. These proceedings are also being live streamed via YouTube. All requests to speak on a particular matter via our website and email have been considered. We have also received emails from those who have provided written comments on a particular matter. Thank you.
I'm just checking, can you hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
Okay, so, Michael, can you call the roll?
Anthony,
Present.
Downing,
Present.
Fluker,
Present.
Curry,
Present.
McCray Scott,
Present.
Shiori Clark,
Present.
Slight.
Present.
You do have a quorum, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Actually, we have a full commission today, 100% everybody. So it's a great day. Welcome, everybody. First order of business is to approve the minutes. I think everyone's had them in advance, but I think also Michael was going to bring a printed copy if anyone needed it. So we'll need a motion to approve the minutes from the previous meeting.
I move approval.
A second.
Motion and a second. Michael, call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Shiori Clark,
Yes.
Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. First item is a zoning map amendment. And it's ordinance, it's unnumbered, changing the use area and height district of land west of East 93rd between Empire and Parmalee Avenue. Before the staff presents, and I think Xavier's here to do so, I'm going to read the ground rules for this zoning map amendment, which is a public hearing. First, we will hear presentation from the staff member. Second, we will hear any sponsor testimony. That could be the council person or the owner of the rezoned property. Then we will open it up to public comment, since this is a public hearing. And first we'll hear from proponents, those in favor, and then we will hear from those opposed. Please, before you give your view, ask that you state your name clearly and your organization or address. And please address the chair and keep your comments to 2 minutes or less. And for those of you who are on Zoom, just please raise your hand and I will call on everyone in order. Let's go ahead and Xavier, you want to present the matter?
Thank you. Good morning. Good morning, Madam Chair. Good morning, members of the commission and the community. So today we're going to be diving into the map change for Empire School 2661. Next slide, please. So the purpose of this map change is really to allow the redevelopment of this vacant CMSD school into a vibrant, new, affordable senior housing community. And so this is really connecting with our citywide 2020 plan to really promote a variety of housing typologies and really allowing members of the community to age in place. Next slide, please. So just some of the Cleveland context, just showing you where in Ward 9 this map change is happening, and also just attached a short snippet of council support of this map change from Councilmember Conwell. Next slide, please. And so the existing zoning for this parcel is one zoning district, so one family residential zoning district. You could also just see some more of the neighborhood there. Next slide, there's some more of the context of the community. Thanks, Michael. So you can just kind of see just how the school is surrounded by pretty much smack dab in the middle of a residential district. And then right at the north there, you see the main corridor of St. Clair Avenue. Next slide, please. So these next two slides are going to show you like some of the existing context just going on right there at the school. Currently, these are from a Google Street View. I want to say fall of 2020. Next slide, please. So you can see a lot of the overgrowth and just how the school is not really being too managed. So there is some more slides there of the south-facing view of the Empire CMSD school. Just kind of showing you what the school looks like currently. Next slide, please. So the proposed zoning district is a multifamily F2. So it's really upzoning this for the use of housing for multiple seniors. Next slide, please. And then I also have some timelines here in the next slide, really showing you just kind of how this is a product of the adaptive reuse and redevelopment of surplus CMSD sites. The process that's going forward with CMSD's RFQ process. And so city started info sessions in 2021. Then CMSD had concluded their process, I want to say April 2021. And then one of the first map changes that we've done in reaction to the RFQ process is changing the zoning for Charles H. Lake School Site, and really upzoning that to allow more families to kind of, to allow development there for multiple families. A lot of these rezonings are hopefully going to continue to come in the future, and the goals for those are really to provide more mixed use development and uses for the sites of these old schools. And so today we're talking about Empire School, the change for that. Next slide, please. So I have attached a timeline here for some of the outreach that the Beacon Group has done. Also, I forgot to mention that, so the prospective property owner is online. I have a representative from Beacon that was invited. Her name is Jessica, and she might have some things to add on at the end of this presentation, but I just wanted to kind of show some of the outreach they've been doing within the community. Starting in February 2020, they hosted a community meeting, really reaching out to about 500 plus residents in the area. And about 30 individuals made it. And that was kind of like one of the first presentations of this multifamily project here. And they continue to do more outreach because the community wasn't really satisfied with the first pitch for low-income housing. They really wanted to see kind of like that the same vibrant kind of market rate housing that's happening on the west side. And so they continue to have more community meetings, and eventually the communities, most of the community was satisfied with the last meeting, really just pitching the focus for senior housing. Next slide, please. The community didn't really want to see a lot of like kind of like come and go throughout the street, you know, so they really wanted to focus more on seniors. So yeah, just kind of showing everything happened, just kind of like the timeline from 2021 to the beginning of 2023 here. Next slide, please. And so this is a proposed renovation, so just showing the 3 floors of multifamily housing apartments that's going to happen there on the site. Next slide, please. This will come back before the commission, just because it is over 5 units. So just so you all know, this will be coming back for more specifics about their development on this site and everything like that. This is really proposed zoning to kind of change the zoning district for this parcel for the school, to really allow something else to happen to it in the future, so it doesn't just sit here vacant. But yeah, that's just it. The proposed map change to multifamily house, to multifamily residential district from one family residential district. I believe that's the last slide. Yep. That's all I have. Yeah, open to any questions. And again, Jessica from Beacon is online. I believe she is. She might have any support to add to this.
Okay. So anyone, Xavier, from the kind of sponsorship of this that would like to speak that you know of, or the council person?
Yeah, Beacon, sorry, Jessica just raised her hand.
Jessica, okay. Jessica, please go ahead first, and then we'll take questions from the commission before we open it up.
Hi, thank you all for inviting us, and thanks for your presentation, Xavier. Yeah, the site is currently owned by the school district, and we have as part of their MOU process in 2020, as part of their RFP process in 2021, we entered into an MOU to eventually purchase the site, have it transferred to Beacon Communities. We are excited about the opportunity to create 65 units of affordable senior housing here, and obviously can't move forward with that without having the rezoning in place. As Xavier said, we have talked to a number of community members, both in those public meetings that he described, as well as some more one-on-one conversations with members of the community and community stakeholders. We have refined the project over the past 18 months since we were first entered into the MOU with the city and school district to create something that is what the neighborhood is looking for. So, you know, have pivoted and revised our design to try to get more in line with what we hear from the neighbors. And we had actually, as Xavier mentioned, we are also going through the design review process. We had our first meeting with the design review committee for this project last night and got pretty supportive feedback from that group. So look forward to moving through the rezoning and the design review approvals with the various committees and the commission. Happy to take any questions.
Okay, thank you. Commission members, any technical questions? We will have time for discussion later, but on the zoning before we open it up. Okay, so now we're going to take any testimony from the public that's in favor of the zoning change. Just raise your hand, or if you're in the audience. I don't see anyone. Is there anyone opposed to the zoning change or has a question that they might want to ask? You can also raise your hand. Okay, we'll close the public portion. I think it's pretty straightforward. So to the commission members, any discussion or comments?
Yes, Madam Chair, question to the applicant relative to I believe this is Famicos's service area. Were they involved in community meetings that have been kept apprised of what's going on?
Yeah, thanks for asking. We have had a number of meetings with Famicos. We met with them back in August 2021 when we first started working on this project, and have stayed in touch since then. Representatives from Famicos were at both of the main community meetings we held in February and December of last year, and we've had smaller group meetings with them, and they've helped us kind of improve the project over time with some useful feedback.
Thank you.
Madam Chair, I'd like to move approval. I think this is a great adaptive reuse for this building and look forward to seeing the updates and design.
Second, Fluker.
We have a motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Shiori Clark,
Yes.
Flood.
Yes. Thank you.
Motion carries. Thank you. We have a number of items that were removed from the agenda, so I know they're removed on mine, so, okay, that's good. So we're skipping a couple that were on the agenda originally and going to lot splits and consolidations. We will need to remove this from the table. Can I have a motion to remove this from the table?
I move to remove this from the table. Down.
Motion and a second, call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Shiori Clark,
Yes.
Flood.
Yes.
Motion carries. This, we heard at 3405 Clinton Avenue. This was a lot split. Is Dan here to speak to this one?
I should unmute my phone. Yes, I am here on video.
Okay, go ahead.
Okay. Thank you, everyone. I obviously was here last meeting and had the opportunity to refine a few things in the presentation, as well as go to the neighborhood block club to pass out flyers of the just elementary site plan that I have for you. You can go to the next slide. So again, here is just an overhead view of the lot. Obviously, it's got the orange dot on it. The structure currently on Vine Court in the backyard is a 2-car garage. The neighboring house next door that is has no yard. Obviously, I don't know the story behind that once again, but the subject lot split would be right on that orange line, and I think you could probably go to the next slide to see a present like the. Okay, that's in a couple slides. So when I was doing some research, obviously the biggest word that came up was just that the lot was going to be unsatisfactory for the area. You know, doing some digging, any lot under 4,800 square feet would be considered substandard. So just on my immediate block, all the highlights in yellow are lots that are substandard under 4,800 square feet. And obviously on the next slide, you'll see the dimensions. So all under 4,800 square feet, the proposed lot would be almost 3,800. It would be the second largest of all of them. And I'd be making a substandard flag lot into 2 rectangular parcels, which would make them similar to all the ones on my immediate block. So I'm just asking for the flag shaped lot to be split. Next slide. So there you can see just the survey with the proposed lot line. Obviously there's the existing garage right there. It's not on the lot line, but it is just off of it by, you know, depending on which point or corner of the garage, it would be, I think it was 14 and then 16 inches off the lot line. Next slide. and this is what I passed out to people at the neighborhood block club. Just creating a better Vine Court, 3 garages. There'll be driveways, paved, landscaping. And the plan would be for in the middle lot that's created, which would be big enough for a single family home to put a single family there. 36 feet wide would be the lot, and that would be ample room to put a 26-foot wide house. As I was doing some digging, I mean, as far as the setbacks go, with the existing garage back there, since it's not living space, it wouldn't have to be within 10 feet of the neighboring structure that would be livable. So it would, the plan would be for it to stay where it is right there. I do own the lot next to it as well, where that other garage is. So I would just put a garage there and make it all look uniform. The neighbor with the at 00326-085 in the top right corner of the picture. When I went to the neighborhood and spoke to them, just prior to the last meeting I was here, they didn't really have any objections other than they didn't want a 3-story townhouse structure to be built overlooking their lot. Obviously that can't be done from 2 lots down, and I'm totally fine, getting with an architect once I get to that point of the single family doing a 2-story structure. I mean, nothing that big can go back there. So, their concern is valid, and it's just not something that can be done from 2 lots away. So when I went to the block club, I just had a few questions, asking if I got with an architect. Obviously the answer is no. And there wasn't any other concern other than it was just said that this was tabled. So that's pretty much all I'm asking for.
Okay, is there any questions from comments? Also, maybe ask staff if there are any recommendations from the staff on this as well.
Madam Chair, we do have recommendations from the staff. I do see that Ben Trimble raised his hand, so perhaps Ohio City Inc. should speak first, and then we'll have staff comments after that.
Okay, Ben, I see you on. Go ahead.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Ben Trimble, Chief Real Estate Officer for Ohio City Incorporated. We'd ask that the commission give us actual time to review this application and speak to the community. While it's true that the applicant did attend the block club, he was not on the agenda. So it wasn't a real conversation with folks in the community. And so we handed out a flyer. There was no opportunity for a conversation, for questions and answers. I guess we're worried that this is such a dangerous precedent where we're splitting off parcels for sale without any development plan that's actually resulting. And I would say, the plan that we're being shown looks like something that was done in Microsoft Paint. It's I don't know that it complies with code. We have no idea what the elevations are, what the size of structures being built here. And I guess I don't understand the hurry in granting a lot split for a plan that it seems unformed at this point. So we would ask if the commission could once again either ask to table this or deny the request so that we can have a real conversation with the community. Thank you, ma'am.
Can we hear from staff?
Yeah, and Matt Boss is coming forward to speak. I'm actually going to share that Councilmember McCormack did send a letter, really quick email. Please accept this email as my objection to the lot split. I don't believe the city should consider this lot split until the property owner submits real plans for the site, not just an outline.
Okay. Okay. And Matt?
Yes, thank you, Madam Chair. So again, I'm Matt Moss. I'm the neighborhood planner for the area. Since the last time this was in front of you all, I've had several conversations with the CDC and Dan McCarthy, the owner. I want to start by going back to why lot splits are reviewed by the Planning Commission and the criteria that are in the code. So the zoning code says that you are reviewing lot splits for basically two criteria. That the two lots or the lots in general that are created will be similar in size and shape and width to other lots in the surrounding vicinity. And the second criteria is that you have to make a determination that the lots that are created can be developed in a way that will not be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of residents of the city of Cleveland. Those are your two criteria. And so that is the starting point we'd like to take as staff when we're first looking at a lot split proposal. And I think what the applicant has demonstrated is that the lots that he is proposing to create here would be similar in size and shape to lots in the immediate vicinity. There are several lots in this block that are not only substandard per the minimum standards, 4,800 square feet, but are in fact would be smaller than the two parcels that he's proposed to create. So there are existing lots in this block that are smaller than the proposed lots to be created. The second question is a little more nuanced in the sense of, can these be developed in a way that will not be detrimental to the health, safety, and welfare of the city of Cleveland? I can say from my experience as a neighborhood planner reviewing many infill development proposals in this neighborhood and in neighborhoods across the near west side of the city, that we've reviewed developments on lots of this size, of smaller sizes, whether they're single family homes, duplexes, townhomes, multifamily homes, and that there's nothing that I can see specific to the lot dimensions itself that would prevent it from being developed. That said, those are the two, that is my feedback speaking to the two criteria in the code. From what I have heard from speaking to the Development Corporation, from the work that they've done in talking to the community, that they have concerns about this owner and the condition in which he's kept these properties, his intentions around buying and investing in these properties, and how he plans to then dispose of them or develop them himself. And those are all serious concerns that I think warrant consideration and warrant discussion. I think there's been a challenge in general and across the city in terms of us being able to maintain through code enforcement the level of aesthetic quality at a baseline level across the city, but especially in historic districts where the city has designated these areas as having significant architectural value. And I've been told, I don't know the specific conditions of these properties, but I've been told by the CDC that they are not being maintained to the level that they would deem acceptable given that designation and that work that's been done in this area. Those are all serious concerns. I think oftentimes that is brought into the decision you are making today in terms of whether this lot split is appropriate. So I think that you should be aware of those things. You should have those thoughts in your mind when you're making this decision. But the lot split itself, I think, stands on its merits in terms of what we are reviewing lot splits to do and what is the purpose of that review. And that the lots themselves are sufficient in terms of size and developability. The challenge of, I think, expecting any proposal or any property owner who wants to split land that they engage an architect and spend thousands of dollars on a site plan that they may or may not have any intention, desire, or ability to build is an onerous standard to apply if we expected that of every single applicant who owns property and wants to split their land. So I think that that is a challenge that is worth considering, as whether it's not a requirement in the code. So I think you should be really thoughtful in considering whether that's a requirement we apply to lot splits going forward. So those are my comments.
And to add to that, really quickly, if there is structure for review, and go through the design review process within Landmark's staff and commission.
I'd like to move to table until the community can fully vet this request via the neighborhood meetings. So that is my motion, Madam Chair.
Thank you.
I don't know.
Do we have a
Second.
motion and a second? Can you call the roll?
Wait, sounds like there's some questions from the commission members, or
Yeah, I just have a couple of clarifying questions. One, last time I feel like there was discussion about the proximity of the garage to the lot line. I'm wondering if that is I don't know if that's still an issue here. And then my other question is just if there's been any conversation with the property owner to the north of this property. I don't remember exactly what the situation was with that. Just a couple of other clarifying questions.
Yeah, I can speak to the garage. Shannon, when I'm Chief Zoning Planner, City Planning Commission. So the garage on the lot line is about 13 inches off the lot line, but because it's not, there's no unit above it, that setback, the required setback in a two-family district for a single-family home on the lot to the east would be the 5 feet, the 3 feet in a 2-family district. And so I just want to add like some clarifying points for this also. I think it's really important to really push the fact that like if we're going to set the precedent to require all lot splits to have a full development plan, I don't think that's equitable across the city. Understanding that like this neighborhood obviously has a little bit more development happening in it, and it's a popular neighborhood is one thing, but when we set the regulations of the zoning code for the entire city, and then any use as this is for a townhouse project in this at this specific lot would require conditional use and have to come back before you all for more purview basically. And so I just want to add that as well, that when you're thinking about this as it relates to the lot split itself, any future project would have to come before you, but especially for townhouses, a conditional use would have to come back before you as well.
And what is the city staff, I'd be curious, is like opinion generally on, and specifically this neighborhood, but I guess generally neighborhoods of this density that do have development happening in terms of creating lots that open only onto alleys versus onto more major streets, and generally in kind of developing what is essentially feels a little bit like an ADU type. As I'm just curious, is more density in this type of kind of setback ADU type property something the city is generally in support of in a neighborhood like this, or no, because it's a historic district?
I think as it relates to, our missing middle housing and housing affordability and land affordability, if there's lots that can be developed, especially with an alley access and not from a main road as it relates to walkability, the city supports it.
And Madam Chair, just to be clear on my motion, the reason is to give the community an opportunity to have a fuller discussion about this proposal. It's not made in terms of the end viability.
Got it. Yeah. Okay, we have a motion and a second. We have to vote when we have a
Madam
motion.
Chair,
and a second.
Madam Chair,
Yes, go ahead.
Mr. Slife,
Very, very quickly, thanks, August.
Okay.
I'll support the motion. I'm fine with there being a little bit more community engagement, and I won't go on the full soapbox, but I think that I'd like to make sure that as we look for community input, that the community is fully understanding of what the legal standard is that the staff put out. Because what I don't want is more situations where we're skeptical of owners, we're skeptical of developers, what I don't want us to be depriving people of their property rights, and essentially weaponizing this process because people are trying to ask us to go outside of the legal standard. So I think it's okay for the community to have a little bit more input, but I worry sometimes that is interpreted as the community using itself as a veto power and not really having a full understanding of what our legal authority is and the ramifications of if we start denying essentially permits to people who can then sue us for denying their property rights. So.
Madam Chair, I agree with Mr. Slife. I think the explanations that Mr. Moss and Ms. Leonard gave provided clarity. I mean, we understand our right, and I think that's all we can ask for is follow the process and let this process avail itself.
I would agree as well. I don't personally inherently have an issue with this lot split, but I agree that, seems like good process to have the owner present officially before Block Club, and we can go from there.
I will say though, as a matter of process, I do think there is some merit in the question of whether this is a serious proposal. And we do have a policy of requiring legitimate and serious proposals for lot splits, because we cannot be in the business of just speculative lot splits across the city, because they would come in 100 per week if we did that. So I think there is some nuance here, and I would like to say is though we do have a motion and a second, so we do need to vote on this either way, and then we'll see what happens at that point. So can you call the roll, Michael?
Actually, Madam Chair, I just want to just affirm some of the comments that have been made by fellow commissioners. I really appreciate, Mr. Moss, you providing the clarity around what is our purview. And I do just want to be cautious that, again, we're not exercising our authority beyond what we are being asked to do. So I think it's important, as Shannon said, this is not a standard just for this particular lot split. But we're could potentially be setting a precedent for the ways in which we do this throughout the entire city. So I just appreciate the staff's clarification, specifically as it relates to the commission's role. And I believe, based upon Ben from the CDC, I can understand, having Mr. McCarthy come back in a formal capacity to present this information. But I do agree that I'm right now not opposed to this particular lot split. I want to make sure, of course, that the community has an opportunity to provide input and understand, as Councilman Slife said, what is the standard that we should be striving for, not necessarily picking and choosing specific properties or property owners that, for reasons outside of our control as a commission, people may have an issue with. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Okay. Anything else before we vote? To the applicant, I do think you should do a little more work before you go back to the community. That's my opinion in terms of the seriousness of the proposal. Can we call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Shiori Clark,
Yes.
Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. All right, we'll see you. This was to be tabled, so you can come back as soon as you have the community meeting. And we'll see you when that takes place.
It's like the NIMBY, right?
Next, design review case, it is 2023-001. This is a proposed demolition of proposed demolition of two one-story structures and a garage. This is at 85 Rocky River Drive. I don't need to swear Brett in because he's from the city of Cleveland. So Brett, you can take it away.
Hi, I'm Brett. I'm with the Demolition Bureau for the city. And yeah, we're seeking the demolition, two one-story structures and a garage. Do you have my presentation? Yep, cool. You can go to the next slide. Yeah, site location and context. It's sort of near some commercial properties, and it's on Rocky River near Parkmount. You can go to the next slide. As I said, we're seeking the demolition of these two one-story properties and the garage. They've been privately owned by the same owners since 2002. The structures have been vacant since at least 2019. As a city, we've received 7 complaints about these properties, and we've had to go out and board them up 3 times. There's almost $4,000 in back taxes, and our site plan, this is a nuisance abatement demolition, so our site plan would just be for this to remain a vacant lot, and it would remain in the same hands as these owners. We can go to the next slide. There's exterior photos of building 1. You can go to the next slide, and we have interior photos of building 1. Next slide. We have exterior of building 2. Next slide is the interior of building 2. And then if you go to the next slide, we have photos of the garage. And the next slide is our site plan would be to demolish all 3 of these structures, remove foundation and subgrade materials, level the site, clean, backfill, topsoil, seed, and straw. And as I said, it would remain a vacant lot for the time being. That's our presentation.
I move approval.
A second, McCray Scott.
Oh, we have a motion and a second. Can we call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Shiori Clark,
Yes.
Slight.
Yes.
Motion carries. I see staff report, but do we have administrative approvals or mandatory? Oh, there we go. Okay. I was going to say that would be the world's shortest meeting. I know it got short. That would be a world record.
Yeah.
Just
Okay.
to clarify, there will be a staff report slide after each case to allow for any comment, and we're just integrating that into the flow of the discussion. Sometimes there may or may not be staff report, and so just wanted to let everyone know. Thank you.
Okay, got it. The next item is Euclid Corridor. This is a proposed demolition of 15 industrial buildings. This is at 1814 East 45th Street. And there's a group here from Stanek who are the applicants for the demolition. I'm going to need to swear in everyone who will speak. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Is that Kevin? Are you the only one speaking?
I'm going to be presenting. I think Jim Van Norwick from GE is on.
Okay.
And Marion Whiteman from GE.
Marion Whiteman from GE also.
Okay. So
Andy Vance with Stantec.
Okay. So I consider you all sworn in. If we go back, though, commission members, and I know staff is going to give a report, just to alert the commission members to take a look at the recommendations. It was approved at Euclid Corridor with a set of 4 conditions. I think I heard from you, Director, that you would like staff to go first. Is that correct?
Staff go after for design.
Oh,
review.
staff to go after. Got it. Okay. So you can take away the presentation. So I'll turn it over to the team that is here to present.
Okay. I'm Kevin McNeil with Stantec. So we're seeking approval for demolition of the former Euclid lamp plant at 1814 East 45th Street. So next slide. And this is the location. It's on between 45th and 43rd, Payne and Commerce are the other streets to the north and south. Next slide. So the property occupies most of a city block. I already went through that. It is 16 interconnected buildings on 7.1 acres. The buildings were built between 1880 and 1920, and they're primarily brick and mortar with wood floors. It's 423,000 square feet, up to 3 stories, not including the basements. Next slide. There's some recent exterior photos. And next slide. So GE has owned the property since 1892. It was primarily used to make incandescent lamps, which is the light bulbs, typical light bulbs that were used in the past. Elemental mercury was used extensively. The plant was closed in 2008 due to manufacturing inefficiencies, and the buildings have not been used since that time. Most of the equipment and materials were removed in 2008, 2009 as part of the decommissioning process, and the plant was taken through the Ohio EPA CROW program, where it was issued a notice of compliance in 2009. Next slide. These are recent interior photos. You can see most of the debris on the floor is peeling paint, and there's also buckled floors due to lack of air conditioning. Next slide. So I'm going to go through the environmental issues with the building. I mentioned that elemental mercury was used extensively in the manufacturing process. Approximately 20,000 pounds of elemental mercury was moved during the decommissioning activities. That's about 10 tons. And despite the extensive decommissioning process, elemental mercury is still present in many building locations, including between floors and in floor drains. Mercury vapor assessments in the buildings continue to detect mercury vapor at concentrations that exceed standards for residential and commercial uses according to the ATSDR guidance. GE has evaluated available remedial alternatives and determined it's not feasible to remediate the elemental mercury to allow for safe building reuse, and that demolition is the only viable alternative to ensure that the residual mercury is removed and doesn't pose a exposure threat to future building occupants. US EPA guidance at similar facilities. These were GE facilities where they had similar issues. Confirmed that mercury remediation without demolition is not feasible in 2 cases after the passage of many years. GE was ordered back by the US EPA to demolish similar mercury impacted facilities that had been sold and redeveloped. And GE believes it's prudent to follow the EPA's guidance. The buildings do also contain asbestos, lead-based paint, and metals impacted dust that will be addressed as part of pre-demolition activities prior to the actual demolition. During this thing, I also mentioned that the GE did provide a report about the mercury to Midtown, an environmental consultant for Midtown, and he basically concurred with the assessment that both GE and Stantec have made about the need for building demolition. Next slide. There's also some safety and structural issues. The buildings are obviously old and have deteriorated with age and obsolescence. There are structural issues, including holes in the roof and buckled floors, which is called roof leaks. And the rate of material deterioration continues to increase because the building envelopes are no longer intact. And certain areas now are unsafe to access. So there's a concern for the GE caretakers and potential trespassers due to the deterioration. Next slide. So this talks about a little about the economic viability and property reuse. We mentioned the widespread presence of the mercury in the buildings makes it technically infeasible to prepare them for reuse and to formulate strategies for viable redevelopment. And for this reason, despite conversations with potential users, GE has not identified any market demand for the buildings. And the evaluation by the GE brokers has suggested that once the buildings are removed, the likely reuse would be new construction targeted to industrial distribution or commercial redevelopment. And the environmental property conditions could also support residential redevelopment. And next slide. So the plans are for GE to fully demolish all the building foundations of the property. The existing parking lot area would remain. The property would be fully fenced at that point. If the demolition is approved, it would begin in the following weeks, and that it would be completed in the fall of 2023. And GE has a lot of experience that I think Marion Whiteman will talk to about repositioning these properties, working with local communities and interested buyers to expedite the site reuse in a way that will benefit the neighborhood. And next slide. So this just shows you the demolition plan. All the buildings and structures of the site will be completely demolished, including the above grade and below grade structures, basements, tunnels, sewers. And then next slide. This is the final slide. This shows our restoration plan. So we have the existing asphalt parking lot will remain. And then our plan was to put stone and gravel over the area that was being demolished. We've obviously have made commitments to Midtown to work with them to come up with a different potential different restoration plan that is more attractive. So that's my last slide, and I pass it off to Madam Chairperson.
To the chairwoman, this is Director Huang. I believe Midtown is on the line, and point of procedure, we should swear in the CDC members who wish to comment.
Okay. And before we have the CDC speak, do we have the council approval for this or support?
Councilwoman House has expressed her support for the full demolition, given the situation with mercury.
Okay. Who is here from the CDC?
This is Karis from Midtown.
Okay. Hi, Karis. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, oh, go ahead.
Thanks. So I just wanted to make a brief comment. We, when this was initially proposed, we had worked with the city to ask to just slow down the process and do a little bit more due diligence. And so Matt from the environmental consultant group that we had retained is on the call to answer any questions and to provide summary, I believe, as well. We are concerned with the impact that the complete removal of the street frontage leaves behind, but understanding the environmental concerns, just wanted to do more due diligence to understand if complete removal was required or if any portion of the buildings could possibly be retained. Given the severity, I think, and given the design review recommendations from yesterday, we really are just looking to consider the interim use, as Kevin just stated, working with a more attractive interim in terms of landscaping and fencing. And then really also ensuring full remediation for redevelopment and looking to, we had discussed the aggressive marketing of the site for redevelopment and working with the city and with Midtown in that redevelopment plan.
Okay. Thank you. Thank you. Commission members, any questions or comments?
Madam
Go ahead.
Chair, this is an indictment on the process, and I'm going to make a point here in a second. It's not an indictment against GE or any of the players or stakeholders. On East 55th and Euclid, there's a gas station removed, and I remember the case. Russell Baruch is the developer, and we put forth stipulations that if you don't develop this property in so much time, you're to improve this property. Right now, this is gravel and pavement. It's the gateway into the health tech corridor, and no one's enforcing what we rendered. So I have concerns about the process. You know, one thing applies to the one developer, but the other developer gets a pass. So I just wanted to bring that up, and we can have further discussion. Thank you.
Oh, I just wanted to go on record and say that I am totally against this property being used in the future for residential purposes. I just want to go on record.
Madam Chair, and I appreciate Kara speaking about the environmental concerns. So I guess I'm not sure who quite to direct this question to, if it's staff or the applicants that are here today. But given the very detailed report that Mr. McNeil provided as it relates to the environmental issues, I was curious as it pertains to demolition, when you have such a severe substance like this elemental mercury, are there different types of demolition protocols or procedures that are supposed to be enforced? I can't quite tell, and I guess I could bring up the Google map to see what are the properties that surround this actual building on East 45th. I'm not sure what is north and south of the building. Are there residential properties? So I have concerns about the environmental impact for the immediate neighborhood. And then one just procedural question, is it that GE will maintain ownership until a new project is identified? Sorry, that was two questions.
And I also have those same concerns about how the demolition is done, given the circumstances in the building.
Hi, this is Kevin McNeil back. So we have done buildings like this before. I've worked on dozens of demolitions for General Electric and with similar issues. We are very careful about making sure that that there's no environmental impacts to the surrounding neighborhood. A lot of the work that we're going to be doing on the mercury remediation will be done while the building's standing, and then once that's done, when we take the building down, we're very careful that we monitor the air for both dust and for mercury vapors. So we monitor the air. If there's any issues, we stop and we make sure that it's addressed. in my thing, I don't think there's any issues with that are going to be affecting the surrounding neighborhood. There's enough buffer for us to work without impacting anybody. So I don't know if DE wants to, Jim, do you want to add anything to that?
Could you answer the second question, or there were two questions. There was, will GE retain ownership until there is, and maintenance of the site till there is a strategy?
Madam Chair, yes, that is correct. I just wanted to clarify if GE will maintain ownership.
So.
Yes, and actually, this is Marion Whiteman.
Okay.
And hey, Kevin, I run GE's Brownfields program. Redeveloping this site, working with the community, is one of GE's #1 priorities. This site is one of the top priorities on our list to work with the community to come up with a positive redevelopment strategy. One of the things we spoke to Midtown about yesterday, we do not view, for instance, selling a property for trailer parking as a positive redevelopment strategy. And I use that as an example only because that's frequently what happens. We understand to open lots that are available. We're looking to partner with somebody to do something here that's meaningful. And when we do redevelopment, we work with people on redevelopment, we look for sustainable uses. And by sustainable, I do mean sustainable in the environmental context, but more importantly, I mean a use that isn't going to have the property flipping from person to person to person. So our goal is to maintain ownership and then transfer it to a party that has a real and meaningful redevelopment strategy. The unfortunate thing in connection with our evaluation is that we spoke to a number of developers and nobody wanted to speak to us about next thoughts out here till they were certain the buildings were coming down. So we've tried to have those conversations, but until we have approval to do the deconstruction, nobody wants to move that next step.
Thank you.
Marion, may just hammer home the point a little bit more, make sure we fully understand. Obviously, the demolition includes the remediation of the vertical structure, but is the remediation of the soils also on the table right now, or is your intention to wait to identify that end user and then have either GE, that entity, or some combination remediate to the level that would be necessary for the proposed use?
I would say a combination of both, which doesn't answer your question as clearly as you would like. So what I will tell you is we have soil and groundwater information now, and the conditions of the soil and groundwater are generally acceptable for industrial and in many cases residential use. One of the things we typically do, and I say generally, we typically, after we've deconstructed the structure, there are certain aspects of the site that we can't access until the building is gone to do make sure we've done a robust sampling investigation throughout the site. At that point, we will take a look at what remains on site to be addressed. In some instances, we'll remove it. In some instances, building a structure is a reasonable cover. And what we will do is follow the Ohio VAP program and the VAP guidance for what that means. We may or may not, it may not need to go through the VAP program. Right now, it doesn't look like it would necessarily. But even if it doesn't go through VAP, our approach to remediating it will use the VAP guidance and VAP program.
Okay, I do echo my colleague's position that this not be residential. One, because that is a high remediation standard. Two, it's in the middle of an industrial area. But I also think that we don't have good developable sites in town. We have a lot of vacant land, but especially our vacant industrial land has not been remediated. So even more so than the demolition, knowing that the land can become developable in the near to mid future, I think is as important to me as anything else. And I guess my hope would be that I'm happy to help make the connection, but Midtown, if you're engaged with Team NEO, I'd really like for them to kind of think through what state resources or assistance they could use to help bring funds to bear if necessary, but also helping to get this identified as a site in the urban core available for new development that can create jobs. Because too often, like this is the site that can maybe help us compete with something that would end up in Medina County, Geauga County, because it's easier to build there. So it's something, you know, good with the demolition, but my questions and concerns are really about the steps beyond that and making sure we're engaged.
Are there examples of sites with this kind of elemental mercury that have been able to be successfully redeveloped rather than demolished?
No, not in G. The two sites that Kevin referenced are in Hoboken and Harrison, New Jersey, and those are the ones that had to be demolished. The one in Hoboken is probably the worst story we've ever had at the company. And what happened is GE sold that building in the 60s. It got converted to residential, really nice loft kind of apartments. And on Christmas Eve, somebody was cooking and mercury was dripping on her stove. And so EPA came in, we had to do an emergency removal and that sort of thing. The challenge with mercury at this level, some sites may have mercury in isolated areas. And so when you're asking the question, yes, if there's an isolated room or an isolated area, and we have had sites like that, the challenge here is mercury was used. There were, in some cases, between 8 and 16 vats of mercury on each production machine. And those vats had to be removed. Small vials had to be removed, replenished. And so things happened during hundreds of years of operation. There were also large major vacuum pumps that pumped air, you know, created a vacuum, but also ended up spreading mercury in other parts of the facility. So the challenge is what we found is when we remove wood block floors, there are beads of mercury under those floors. And then you get it in crevices, you get it in cracks and concrete and brick. And so in order to remove it all, you just don't know how to do it. People have posed encapsulation as a potential. And when GE has used encapsulation for operating facilities, we've had a very strict protocol for monitoring health and safety of employees in that context. And so it's just not practical to put a protocol in place to say we're going to encapsulate it and make sure it never gets released again.
Thanks.
I'll move approval of the demolition with the conditions. If somebody could go back to that slide. I'm sorry. To provide a landscape plan around the perimeter of the site, work with Midtown and city staff when considering the nature of the future developer's development intent for the site and how it may be used, to study the landscape of the whole site, and to study the salvage of materials that might be integrated into the temporary landscape of the site if feasible. Thank you.
Thank you. We have a motion. Do we have a second?
I would offer a second, Madam Chair. If we can have further discussion after.
Okay. We have a motion and a second. And any additional comments or questions or discussion from the commission?
Yes, what I would like to advocate is our partner at Midtown ensure that these sites around Midtown receive the proper landscaping and fenestration that everyone has agreed to. And that would be including but not limited to this project.
Are there portions of the existing buildings that you think could be salvaged or no? Because I know Karis had mentioned that as a possibility.
I'll speak to, Mary, do you want to talk about that?
Yeah, let me jump
Okay.
in for a second. So one of the challenges, if you look at the existing building, we're evaluating that. But when you look at the existing buildings, the structure is really the portions of the structure that provide architectural interest are really the way the brick is put together. And all of the features are brick. There are very few, if any, sort of standing independent, not statues, not designs, not things. They're all sort of formed into the brick. And so we're looking at what it would take to potentially reuse some of that, but we're not even sure it's feasible to remove portions during the deconstruction. If you look at most of the buildings, especially the ones that aren't on Commerce, if you go down East 43rd Street, most of what you have there is just flat brick wall with windows in it. There are a couple features, and we're trying to see what we can propose.
Just to clarify, was the question, is there any of the buildings that could be saved for reuse? Like as a building?
I was assuming that wasn't possible, so I was
Oh.
thinking more about ways that, individual elements might be able to be
Oh, I see. The
reused in
architectural.
a landscape plan or something, in
Right,
some
right.
other way.
We are looking at that. There are some, as Marion said, there are some interesting features on top of some of the buildings, especially the main building that we're looking to see if we could bring those down and put them on the ground as part of this landscaping plan. So it's under
And then-
consideration.
Just last quick, I think I know the answer to this, I think, but just confirming you would then be backfilling in all of the soil that's been taken out with the basements and everything back to grade.
Yeah, everything would be back to grade. It'd be basically a level site, level with the sidewalk.
Any other discussion or questions? Comments? All right, we have a motion and a second. Michael, can you call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
No,
Shiori Clark,
Yes.
Slife.
Yes.
Motion carries. Next item, this is also Euclid Corridor. It's the proposed demolition of a one-story structure seeking final approval 2023-003 at 2071 Cornell Road. And this is someone from University Hospitals and Rebecca from CJ Contractors. Can I swear you both in? Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury? Is there someone here? On this matter? So the director, do you know if there's an applicant for this item?
I don't see anyone else in the room, so. I mean, can we postpone this till the end of the agenda while I speak with the city? Like,
Okay, then let's not table it, but we'll come back to it. But if they don't show up, we'll table it at the end of the meeting. The next item is Downtown Flats Design Review. This is 2022-069. This is 5 Iron Golf signage at 1101 Euclid Avenue. Mark, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth, as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do, and Chris Hannafy from 5 Iron is also on the call.
Okay, do you also?
I do.
Okay, and this was approved with a condition. I'll have you also, if you could address the condition and whether you'll meet it when you present, that would be great.
I'm going to turn it over to Chris. He's going to.
well, hold
really-
on, one moment. This is because this is related to signage and zoning. Chief City Planner Shannon Leonard is going to present first, and then we'll have the applicant. Sorry.
Okay. Oh, wait, sorry, Director Wong, you said this is a zoning matter or a design review matter?
It requires a variance.
Okay. Oh, it's signage. I got it. Yeah.
Just signage. Signage.
Got it. Signage variance. Go ahead, Shannon.
Good morning, Shannon Leonard, Chief City Planner and Zoning Section, City Planning Commission. I'll just walk you through these quickly for these cases that need variances. Next slide, please. They're proposing business identification and window signage along Euclid Avenue for branding and identification. Next slide, please. Why are you guys seeing this? City planning has the ability to vary the code to be more strict or less strict to pretty much get more creative signage in our design review districts. And so you can vary the sign code in relation to does it meet the design compatibility standards of City Planning Commission and nearby properties and the property itself. And then is it the minimum variation necessary to ensure that type of compatibility? Next slide, please. So what is a wall business identification sign? It's essentially a wall sign affixed to the wall or a window that promotes the business and branding, logo, etc. Next slide, please. And so the variance is required here is the linear frontage of the building is basically they're proposing, I apologize. They're proposing, you guys previously approved wall signage for their canopy variance previously. And so they're proposing 333 square feet of window signage. Originally, when they first went through design review, it was total window coverage. And we in zoning, as well as the staff, had concerns about, the street, frontage being completely covered by window signs for their business purposes. And not providing that interaction between the interior of the building and the exterior of the building. And so previously they needed a 556 square foot variance, but the design review team worked with them, as they will explain, so they only need a 47 square foot variance for window signage as it relates to the business. Next slide, please. And so basically, when you go through this review, you need to determine if this results in signage that is better suited to the design of the subject property or nearby properties. Does this result in signage that follows the Planning Commission standard of approval for design guidelines? And are these variances the minimum necessary to ensure design compatibility with their property and their surrounding properties? Thank you. So the applicant can walk.
Who's gonna present?
Chris, do you
from
wanna-
Sure. Yeah, this is Chris Hanafi. I'm the Director of Development for Five Iron Golf. And so this variance is requested. Our business operates much like a movie theater where we project images onto a screen for golf simulation. So natural light is not a friend of our program. And so we try to mitigate that anywhere we can. In this instance, we, due to the amount of swing bays that we do have in this location, some of them are forced up very close to the storefront. And so in order for those to be viable, we do need to provide some coverage of the windows, to obstruct the sunlight from coming in and essentially washing out the screen. So what we've done, as a compromise is we've only included the graphic window vinyls in the most sensitive areas. And then we are also have agreed to relocate one of our swing bays away from the windows where we could to, provide that transparency and that street activation. Some of the conditions that were requested that we will certainly meet is incorporating some display walls where there are walls, inside the space facing outward. We will also be including some benches on the exterior, for the public to utilize. And then there was also a recommendation for some monitors to be displaying some content, some golf related or business related content without advertising. And we are certainly excited about that. So we will be, going forward with all those recommendations made.
Okay, thank you. Commission members, questions, comments?
Madam Chair, this is a question for Shannon. I just have a procedural question. So I know we are looking at the signage, but I do notice that in the condition, it talks about outdoor seating. And I'm just curious as to any guidance around particularly the outdoor seating.
Yeah, so I'm not sure if Allison is on the call, who is the urban design manager in charge of the design review district for downtown. I know that there was a lot of conversations about it in the meetings, just because the nature of their business requires them to obscure the windows and, you know, wanting to really create some type of interaction on the street so that people felt safe that we're, you know, crisscrossing down Euclid and right there in front of the health line. But I don't know, is Allison on?
Is Allison online? If not, I can comment quickly. So that would be a separate design review case to come before you and require an encroachment permit through the city since it is in the city's public right of way. So for today, let's focus on the signage.
Thank you.
Yeah, and that is a recommendation, so I might separate out the recommendation of the seating separate from a condition. Thank you.
Thank you.
Any other questions?
Just to clarify, there's two sets of graphics shown here. Am I correct that the one that comes up first in the presentation is the current one?
This is the current one. That first one was what they had originally proposed.
Okay.
The very first, if you go off a slide, Michael, this was what they had originally proposed, and they needed that 553 square foot variance. And then 2 slides down, I think, is what they've come up with, where they've added and the applicant can speak more to which windows that they're proposing some of that coverage for in the artwork.
You can show the other.
Sorry, it's going so fast.
The proposed facade.
And this is the actual art, right? So the art has also changed in addition to the placement.
Yeah, because the original art, if you go to that first slide, Michael, was, you know, that's part of their branding as it relates. So that is considered business identification window signage. And so they worked explicitly with Allison to really, you know, it's golf light, but it's not their actual branding. And so it was more artwork in nature as it relates to the window coverage that they're proposing. And I think part of the problem where this started off was the interior of the building was permitted by the Building and Housing Department, meaning so where they placed their simulators, right? And so they had already started that construction when they brought the sign in. And so they didn't realize that they couldn't cover, like if you walk past Euclid right now, it's total coverage. And so they didn't realize when they, you know, I guess decided they constructed this that, you know, you can't have full window coverage downtown Cleveland. And that's really a safety issue, right? So that was why this application ended up coming through.
I just have just related to the signage itself. It's a little bit hard to see, but am I correct that the only place currently where it actually says 5 Iron Golf is on the marquee, the canopy?
I believe so, but I'll let the applicant.
Yes, that's
That is-
correct. We
that is correct.
removed the branding off of the art window vinyls.
Okay. My only just slight concern looking at this is to me, if I was walking by, it kind of looks like 5 Iron Golf is now the name of a residential property to me, especially because then all this vinyl, there's no other branding to kind of show that this is the name of a business and there's a business in here and you should go in. So it looks a little bit to me like it was even more like this before where it looked like it says pass off now available. It looks like it's just still a vacant retail space. And so I don't know,
That's what you were looking at there was what is currently up. These that are being shown now is what we will be proposing to put up, and it's far less.
I think it's just really critical that then the space that's not covered actually is activated so that if a pedestrian is walking past, you can actually see that there is a business operating in there rather than, I think if that doesn't happen, to me, it's just still gonna look like this is a vacant retail space and this is just filler signage.
Right. No, you will be able to see into the space on everything that doesn't have window vinyls.
They also have simulators that are fronting the windows, and so they're going to be pushed back further than the 3 feet as it relates to like window signage that will be activated with some artwork that has to do with golf and what the design review have talked about with adding the screens, and then also adding some seating in there so that you know, people are aware.
You can tell it's active.
Yes.
I think the seating goes. Yeah, I agree. I think seating outside would also be really helpful, but I know that would just be a recommendation separately. Okay, I guess I move to approve with the condition that's specified in the.
Can I share that you should read it and then say that the outdoor seating is a recommendation?
Okay, I move to
Acknowledge
approve.
Variance, acknowledge the variance, very important.
Oh.
Sorry. Can you go back to the
Yeah,
variance?
go back.
Yeah.
Very top.
Yeah, so they, one slide up,
There you go.
oh, down. Yeah, so just acknowledge, you know, if you approve the variance for 47 square feet, does it meet one of those three criteria? Up, down, please.
That one.
Does it meet one of those three criteria in your motion? As, you know, it's a minimum variant necessary to ensure design compatibility along the street.
Okay, I guess I move to approve the variance. I think that it is probably the minimum necessary to ensure compatibility with the surrounding properties, given the use of the space. With the condition that the applicant provide items related to their business in window displays and monitors that only shows gaming and no advertisements, and the recommendation that applicant provide outdoor seating along Euclid Avenue.
We have a motion. Did we have a second? Sorry, I missed the second.
Second,
Okay.
Anthony.
Can we call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Luther,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Huey Clark,
Yes.
Sludge.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Next item is also Downtown Flats Design Review, United Church of Christ seeking final approval. This is at 1300 East 9th Street. We have two representatives here. I will swear you in. And while I do that, there are also recommendations or conditions you can see here for the commission. So to the applicants, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
No.
There's also Cheryl here too.
I'm sorry, yes, I had my microphone on mute. Cheryl had to leave. She had an unexpected, she had something unexpected that she had to leave for. Brian Tracy from United Church of Christ is sitting in for her.
Okay, thank you very much. I think Shannon is going to present first since it's signage, and then we'll turn it over to you guys. Thanks.
Good morning again. Shannon Leonard, Chief Zoning Planner, City Planning Commission. Next slide, please. So again, this is a proposal. This has been a long time coming. We've been working with this applicant for this specific building. It's the former AECOM building. It's got a new owner. They've worked with economic development to bring retailers into this space, and it's made it very tricky because this building has historically been used and outfitted as office space. The only retailer there was Chase Bank over the years. And so it's proved very, it's been a difficult process to say the least, to try to figure out how new office tenants and retailers can still have their branding and identification. So next slide, please. And so why are you guys seeing this? Again, you have the ability to vary the code to be more strict or less strict. To create better signage overall. And so you're deciding, does this have design compatibility? You can vary if such variation will result in signage that is better suited to the design of subject property or nearby properties. Does it meet our design guidelines that you all have adopted over the years as well as the city council? And is it the minimum variation necessary to ensure that design compatibility? Next slide, please. Again, wall business identification signs are signs that identify the business that are fixed to the wall. They're not projecting or blade signs. They're parallel with the wall itself. Identification signage is branding for a business. Next slide, please. And so the permitted signage per our code is business identification signage is permitted by right for ground story tenants. Non-ground floor uses that lack direct access to the street are permitted one wall or projecting sign to be no more than 12 square feet in area in place of the ground floor entrance. And each use is permitted window signs not exceeding 20 square feet in total area inside the surface of a window within a subject space. Our sign code does not talk about buildings downtown. Generally, when you have 3 or more uses on one parcel or one lot, they consider it a shopping center. Clearly, office buildings downtown are not shopping centers. And so generally with that, you normally see a monument sign of some sort. And so the rest of the, sign regulations are a little bit tricky as it relates to downtown, but that's why you all have the purview of being able to vary the sign code to get some good design compatibility. Next slide, please. And so the business identification sign, basically you need a variance for, because it's a non-ground floor use. The United Church of Christ moved its headquarters from Prospect to this building. They worked with the property owner to, where they were I think one of the first tenants to take space. And the property owner pretty much put in their lease that they could have this prominent signage on the second floor sign band that you see here on the East 9th Street frontage. And so they had to go through design review quite many meetings to get to this point. And so they need a variance because they are not a non-ground floor, they're not a ground floor use. And then of course, basically any use in this building as it relates to retail or an upper story tenant would need a variance as it relates to the East 9th Street and St. Clair frontages outside of using a monument sign. And so they are proposing 2 non-ground floor signs here. So this one on the East 9th frontage, they are proposing 33.5 feet, so they need a 21.5 square foot variance on the East 9th Street frontage. Next slide, please. And then on the St. Clair frontage here, again, they're limited to the 12 square feet maximum if they were a non-ground floor story tenant. And again, they're proposing here 40.5 square feet, so they need a 28.5 square foot variance for this sign. And so the signs are separated out because of their 2 signs equals 2 sign permits. So they each need their own variance for not being a ground story tenant, and then also the square footage there. And also state that, next slide, please. Yeah, so this went through a lot of conversation about, should we allow that on the second floor? Can the office building create this sign plan? Originally when this application first came through in July, the design review committee had asked them to create a overall sign plan for the entire building, which they're still working through that because you have other retail tenants. So in the future, you'll see Winking Lizard, Colossal Cupcakes, of those nature, just because the nature of the signage that they want and the architecture of this building has provided difficult as it relates to signage and wrestling with the design review committee as well as the applicant. And so again, these 2 UCC signs finally did get approval through design review yesterday. They did choose to keep their headquarters here in Cleveland. And so basically you're deciding, do these 2 signs that both need non-ground floor story variances as well as the square footage, does this result in signage that is better suited to the design of the subject property? Does this result in signage that follows Planning Commission standard of approved design guidelines? And are the variances the minimum necessary to ensure design compatibility with this property and the surrounding properties? So, take any questions and they can walk through it if they'd like.
Okay.
Good morning, Mike Bizek from Sesco Imaging. Again, with in this meeting also is Brian Tracy from United Church of Christ. I'm going to explain the signs. I'll do my best with Brian to take Cheryl's place in concisely explaining the impact on UCC that this has. This is signage for their essentially worldwide headquarters. They moved from New York, I don't know, 30 years ago, I believe it was, and they've occupied space on Huron Road. I believe they sold that building so that somebody else could develop it in a different manner. They looked at a number of different locations within the city, and with the agreements with the property owner, this is what they chose or where they chose to move to. Our intent with the design of the signs was to make it fit and mesh with the architecture as best as possible. Due to the way the building's constructed, we felt that the best way to do this was to create a panel that matched the building panel that would serve as a raceway and background, but would match the building itself, and then place channel letters or icons, logos on it. So these are the two signs. The sign on East 9th is a little smaller, as those panels are a little smaller. We have adjusted already the size per the Design Review Committee's conditions. We've decreased it, and that's what you're looking at right in front of you. I believe that actually results in a decrease in the variance request by a few square feet. This is, but essentially this is the signs. There are channel letters on a bronze background panel. The panel will match the building panel size and will be very shallow. 3 inches is what we're speccing right now. The signs will fit within a sign plan that is still currently being developed. However, this part of the plan has been generally, I can't speak for the board, the design board itself, but it does not seem that there's any objection to this type of sign as the primary building sign. So this will actually match right along with everything else that would be included in the sign plan. There were just some other questions that that had come up on some other signs around the site that they wanted to address before they were able to move our plan forward. In any case, I'd like to answer any questions about signage as they come up, but I'll turn it over to Brian for a minute to expand a little on UCC's need for this visibility and presence at this location.
Okay, thank you, Mike. Good morning. As Mike mentioned, my name is Brian Tracy, and I'm a representative from United Church of Christ. Our offices at 1300 East 9th represent our world headquarters of our denomination with over 5,000 churches and 800,000 members across the world. And as you may know, Mike pointed out, we've had a downtown presence for over 30 years after a move from New York City to our previous location on Prospect Avenue. Our move and long-term lease we've signed at AECOM demonstrates our commitment to the city of Cleveland and wanting to be here long-term. The visual presence of our headquarters to downtown visitors is extremely important to us, especially given the number of visitors and guests we welcome each year for various meetings, conferences, and board meetings, as well as just to simply illuminate the fact that our home is in Cleveland. And I think that's all I'd like to say. So I'd just like to thank the commission for your consideration.
Thank you.
If I could just give a brief staff update, we are satisfied with this particular sign as presented with the United Church of Christ. Thankful to the staff for a lot of work. An overall broad comment about office conversion. You saw on the slide that there are likely going to be more retailers coming forward, and so really wanting to make sure that the overall design doesn't result in signage sort of all over the building. So we will see that plan coming back in front of us in the future. And just overall, we will be seeing more conversion of office buildings into mixed use, multiple retailers. And so we're conscientious of that as a staff. And, you know, I think overall kind of encouraging these sorts of signage plans by property owners is helpful. And it is, you know, incumbent on the property owner to understand the code before they move into allowing tenants to just go ahead, right? So that's my overall comments, but for this particular case, we're satisfied as presented or with the design reviews conditions.
I have a quick question. Then this is more on the BZA side. For a building like this, are variances granted for the tenant or for the parcel? I guess there'll be a design aspect coming forward, so that'll give us a control, but there's kind of one omnibus variance. If the one goes forward, they all have rights to use that variance, right?
No.
Or is that wrong? Okay.
Yeah, so just for point of clarification, so this, signs in design review districts, you all are the jurisdiction as it relates to variances.
Okay.
So there's no Board of Zoning appeals unless, let's say you all denied this today, they could appeal your decision and seek the variance at the Board of Zoning Appeals. But this doesn't set precedent, for signs in the future, so to speak.
So I'd like to move approval with the conditions cited that the signage along East 9th Street be 2 inches smaller in height and logo/icon to be reduced corresponding to the site reduction
And you have to read state the variance.
and
It's really important to state the variance.
and I know, and I'm just trying to get the wording.
Yeah, no,
May I make an observation? When you, in the presentation, why doesn't that slide come up that prompts the motion so that we can read it, so we won't have to look for it?
I'll do that next time.
Okay, thank you. It's a procedural thing.
And I have the actual like square footage on that. website.
Exactly,
It's
exactly.
confusing. I apologize.
Because we're not that smart. Well, at least I'm not. Like,
No, I'm definitely not, obviously. So,
Motion continued, right?
so I continue to move to approve it because I believe because I propose that these variances are the minimum necessary to ensure design compatibility with the surrounding properties.
Second.
Motion and second. Can we call the roll?
You go, girl.
Yes. Thank you.
Yes.
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 Scott. Yes.
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 Motion carries. Can we go back to UH? I know that they're on, and so we'll go back quickly and we can do that demolition.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Thank you. Is the gentleman from UH here and on again?
Yeah, can you hear me now?
Yes. Do you swear to tell the
All
truth,
right.
the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
If you go back up one, I got to read. This is a design review case in the Euclid corridor at 2071 Cornell Road, proposed demolition of a one-story office building. Okay, go ahead.
Yeah, as you can see, next slide, please. This is a demo of temporary modular office units. These things have been put, they were around in the 90s, I believe, and they're beyond their useful life. What we're proposing to do is to raise that building and regrade topsoil, seed, and maintain the grade around there, green space basically. And that's all. There's no immediate future plans for what that would become. And if there was something that comes up, we would represent.
Commission
And there's
members.
a couple of
questions?
And are you landscaping to grade or what's happening?
Yes, that's correct. Just plant grass, but put it back to existing grade.
I'll move approval.
A second.
Motion and a second. Call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Booker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray, Scott,
Yes.
Flush.
Yes. 2002 rainbow.
Motion carries. Thank you very much. It's an important
Thank you.
site, though, so we look forward to what's coming next because it's an important site. Next item.
Winking Lizard, right?
Thank you.
There we go. Winking Lizard Outdoor Dining. This is at 1300 East 9th Street. This was also approved with conditions, so I'll ask Jim and anyone else who's here to speak on this matter to swear you in. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury? Jim or anyone from the Winking Lizard? Director, should we wait on this one too?
Let's go ahead and wait on this. Thank you.
let's go to the next item. And remind me if we have to come back and table it.
Which one is?
This is 2295 East 55th Street. This is Project Renaissance. It's new construction. It says that the committee approved a courtesy presentation with one abstention. I'm not sure what that means, but and it doesn't really say here, is this for final approval?
To the chair, as you recall, the first meeting in January, we approved rezoning of the Project Renaissance site, which was the semi-industrial zoning for the chicken processing company. And so as a part of the recommendation, or excuse me, the approval, they were to go through design review as a courtesy presentation to the commission. So they're coming back to you at this point. While it is a courtesy presentation, they are currently in schematic. And so we felt as staff, it was good for them to come early to provide any recommendations. So you're seeing it here today so that you may provide any input and feedback for their consideration. The reason it's a courtesy presentation is because it's an industrial property, which commission currently does not have legal purview over for new construction. And it is not in a design review district.
So we are not making a motion then, just to the committee?
That's right. No motion, feedback only.
Just feedback only.
Yeah.
Okay. So to the presenters, do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury? Did I hear a yes? To the applicants, are you here?
Apologies, I don't know what's happening today.
Do you want, is there a technical difficulty or should I move on?
I believe there's been a technical difficulty today, which I will look into later. This week has been really challenging with regard to getting our tools together. So let's move on.
Okay, I'll ask one more time. Is there anyone here who's going to speak to this matter before we move on? All right, well, let's keep going. Remind me, there's two that might need tabled now.
Yeah, right.
Okay.
Keep going.
Yes, we're headed towards mandatory referrals.
Okay, let's go on to mandatory referrals. Can you go to the next slide? Ordinance number 442023. This is declaring intent to vacate East 59th Street from Central to Hawthorne. Who's here from the city to speak to this?
I am Eric Westwald's section chief.
Go ahead.
Rick's not here this morning, so Eric Westwald will be presenting this. This is presenting the resolution number 44/2023, declaring the intent to vacate all of East 59th Street from Central Avenue to Hawthorne Avenue, declaring the intent to vacate all of Hawthorne Court from East 59th Street to East 61st Street. These street vacations are necessary to facilitate the construction of the automated poultry processing plant for the IFS solution, which is International Food Solutions. Next slide, please. That is the graphic of the vacations, Hawthorne and East 59th. Next slide, please. And that's the proposed site plan for the automated chicken processing plant for International Food Solutions. Next slide, please. That's all we have. Thank you.
Commission members?
I move approval.
I'll second.
Motion and a second. Any questions before we call the roll? All right, Michael, call the roll, please.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
Hillary Clark,
Yes.
White.
Yes.
Motion carries. Thank you. The second mandatory referral is unnumbered ordinance at 1900 East 6th Street. And this is entering into the chain of title for a tax increment financing legislation. Who here from the city is to speak to this, Tiff?
Hi, good morning. This is Conrad Metz with the City Department of Economic Development.
Thank you. Go ahead and present the.
Thank you. Today we're discussing the proposed renovation of the Fidelity/Baker building at between 1900 and 1940 East 6th. So it's between Superior and Euclid. It's 11 stories, locally landmarked and right smack downtown. Used to be the headquarters of the Fidelity Title Company, which is how it got its name. The developer is 1900 East 6th Street LLC, which is an affiliate of Walton Enterprises of Bentonville, Arkansas. The building will be redeveloped into an approximately 100-room independent boutique hotel. The city is asking to acquire and reconvey the property, as you mentioned, Madam Chair, for the purpose of entering into the chain of title prior to the adoption of the TIF legislation. Total project budget is over $64.2 million, and the hotel will create 105 new full-time W-2 jobs. I have asked representatives of the developer and of the property management company to introduce themselves, to discuss their unique specialties, and they are unique, and to answer any questions you may have about the project or the materials in front of you.
Okay. Is there someone here who wants to just say a couple words?
Brendan and Mike, Patrick, you there?
Yes. Brendan Ames here, Director of Impact Investing for Nuovo. And then Mike Everett, the president of Nuovo, is on here with us. Thank you, Conrad, for that overview. Briefly, if we could go back just a couple slides, and I'll have Mike go ahead and kind of give a brief overview, and then I can do a quick summary of sort of our unique approach to developing our hospitality assets. You can go ahead, Mike, if you want.
Thanks, Brendan. Thank you everyone for the time. Mike Everett from Nuovo. We are a developer of hospitality assets around the country, specializing in historic adaptive reuse, and doing so with a strong view towards social impact and really bettering the communities that we go into. Part of our, really half of our business plan focuses in on the way we find employees, the way we treat our employees, the things we can do to partner with local organizations to bring people to work that might not otherwise be looking into the hospitality industry, and also work with local organizations when we procure kind of everything from food to beverages to supplies for the hotel. A strong focus on local procurement and working with businesses that will also favorably impact the local economy. And last, really, what we're doing everything we can do as a developer, and then ultimately as owner of the asset, to be environmentally conscious and friendly to the community and to the local neighborhood. And so, aside from wanting to build a very meaningful and successful hospitality asset in this location, we want to do the right things in the community, in the neighborhood, and plan to be in Cleveland for a very long time with this asset, and enjoy engaging with the community to do all the right things we can. So organizationally, that's what we're about, and Brendan can speak a little bit more about the project, the building itself.
Thanks, Mike. Can you go to the next slide, please? Sorry, a couple more. We talked about the location. Unless I'm happy to talk about the location, but I'd like to cover some of our impact. Madam Chair, I don't know if there's a preference there.
I just think maybe just a little bit more. We don't need too much more because we're really not proving design, but would maybe just a little bit more about the product.
Understood. Absolutely. So here, I think the best thing to discuss is we've made multiple trips to Cleveland, and every city that we go to, we have this approach that we call sort of our listening tour, where we start to get integrated into the community and understanding what's going on, organizations we can work with. And I think the best representation that we have of that is our longest running asset that we have is Hotel Revival in Baltimore, Maryland. And this is a quick snapshot of how we implement impact into what we're doing in our unique approach to, impact within hospitality that's very different than a lot of hotels. 50% of our local spend, or our spend in general for the hotel, is with local businesses and vendors. So we're very thoughtful about who we're engaging, even from a physical asset standpoint, to food and beverage, to our operations throughout the whole ecosystem of our hotel. We're taking a look at who can we utilize locally instead of just sourcing nationally from that standpoint. Roughly 1/3 of our vendors are diverse within that aspect. And so we've taken this model and we've started to scale it. And we're looking to do the same exact thing in Cleveland. I've made a lot of trips out and I've started talking to a lot of different people. And so as we're moving forward with this project, we look forward to really integrating and creating a community asset downtown that's a little bit differentiated, where we can provide these awesome benefits, a living wage. All of our employees are paid a living wage at all of our assets, and really making, even though we're not a primary employer, we seek to have the same sort of benefits that a primary employer would have, even though we're a hotel. And I'll stand for any questions.
Okay, thank you very much. Commission members, any questions, comments?
Madam Chair, is it Brendan? Sorry, the screen's a little small.
Yes, that's correct.
Thank you. I appreciate you sharing about coming to Cleveland and doing a listening tour. I just want to elevate, particularly on the workforce development objective that you all have detailed. If you have not yet engaged, we have a number of nonprofit organizations in Cleveland that specifically serve individuals that have been impacted by the criminal legal system, that have workforce development programs, most notably towards employment. Lutheran Metropolitan Ministries actually has a culinary program where they're currently working with women at a prison that's located in the city of Cleveland, and beginning pre-release culinary training, and then continuing to work with those ladies upon their return through a program called Chopping for Change. Also within the city confines, we have a program, and training program operated at the Edwin's Restaurant and Training Institute. So happy to provide more recommendations, but just want to elevate, we do have a pretty high percentage of folks impacted by the criminal legal system here in Cleveland particularly. So continuing to make sure that they are not only reintegrated, but reintegrated with pathways for success upon their release is an important value for myself, and I would imagine for our city at large.
And has been done successfully at the Hilton. So there is a model locally.
Madam Chair, I would love to get a list. I just wanted to mention any and all suggestions. I would love to get my hands on that so I can start making contact.
Yeah, the local representative has been forwarded a workforce development agreement, and they are currently reviewing that, and we'll be scheduling that with Allison, Ohio Means Jobs.
I move approval.
I second. McCray Scott.
Thank you. Can we call the roll?
Hanson,
Yes.
Downey,
Yes.
Fluker,
Yes.
Terry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Hillary Clark,
Yes.
Slight. Yes.
Thank you. It's a really wonderful project, and thank you for coming to Cleveland. Seems like a beautiful product as well. So thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. We appreciate it.
Administrative approval 33-2023. This is authorizing the Director of Capital Projects to encroach into the public right-of-way at East 89th Street and Carnegie by installing and maintaining tiebacks and a shoring wall. This should be fairly straightforward, so we don't need too much, but a little bit of explanation would be good.
Madam Chair, these are
Oh, these are
administrative.
administrative approvals now.
Yes.
Okay. So actually, I don't need to read them, but let's pause on all of them. There should be, if it's okay. This one is at Grayton Road. Next one. This is to accept a grant for the Vision Zero project. Next item.
Excuse me, this one should be tabled because we were not successful. And so
Which one?
it's the applying for a federal Safe Streets grant application.
Do we need to remove it or
No, no.
table it?
Oh, we don't need to do anything. Thank you, Michael.
Because we're just voting for the slate of things here, right?
Right. Yeah. Next item. This is
Smart.
okay. You can go, just pause on them. This is a bridge project. Next item.
Related to another.
Next item. Next item. Before we vote on the entire slate, anybody have any abstentions or conflicts on any of them?
No, Madam Chair, I have a question for Director Wong concerning the first ordinance relative to the East 89th tieback. We heard from that project once, and I understand that clinics doesn't have an obligation to come to us, but
They do.
then I don't know. I'm just assuming because there's like a halo over the clinic. And I got to do that, right?
I know. I knew we were going there.
So are we going to see them again, Director Wong?
Yes, so I will clarify because they are new construction, any new construction comes before the planning commission for review for design, anything less than industrial and above 5 units of housing. So they are required to come before us for final approval.
Okay.
The tiebacks are a construction term that I'm super not familiar with. This looks like you understand.
They
what
have
it
to
is.
extend underneath into the public rights of way. And so therefore they need an encroachment.
Right, so they are requesting the city to allow them to go into the right of way too.
But we haven't approved the project yet.
It's approved for schematic.
Okay,
May I
okay.
ask, Madam Chair, if I may, to the commissioners, they actually came in front of you and this was approved as non-numbered ordinance. Okay. I think we sort of had a similar conversation. It was approved as non-numbered
Oh,
ordinance.
interesting. Okay, thank
Okay.
you, Michael, for clarifying.
Thanks,
Thank you.
Director Wong.
And Madam Chair, oh no, let's finish the conversation because we need a vote.
We need to vote on the entire slate, all of the administrative approvals.
Yes.
I move approval.
A second, praise God.
Can we call the roll?
Anthony,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Hunter,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
McCray Scott,
Yes.
Hillary Clark,
Yes.
Light.
Yes.
Motion carries. We do need to table the items.
Madam Chair, I will say that the courtesy presentation for the processing plant is online.
Okay. Should we hear it? Okay.
Yes, if the commission agrees.
Okay.
It is JP.
This is
Okay.
actually.
Is Jim on? Are you presenting? Are you Jim?
I'm prepared to. Yeah, this is JP from Larson Architects.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
Okay, this is 2295 East 55th Street. Please go ahead and, try to move through fairly quickly.
Yes. So again, it was presented as part of the zoning review and the request for the underlying zoning change. This is the adaptive reuse of the existing Goodwill building and an infill portion in Ward 5 on 55th at Central. That's going to basically bring a food processing plant to the neighborhood. The existing kind of building on the very left side is the existing Snap Gourmet, which is used for packaging for school lunch programs. And the portions of the building that you're seeing to the right and the kind of in the middle, the infill portion is all the new construction that's going to support the basically this new food processing plant to go into the neighborhood. We did present to the East Design Review Board Commission and basically did receive schematic review approval with a few minor changes and clarifications from that board. But I can quickly go through this if that's okay. If you just want to go to the next slide. So basically in red is where the overall site of this is. You see the two existing buildings in play. And then next one, sort of the existing conditions, some lovely public art that's already on the building. If we can go to the next slide. This is essentially the demo of what we're going to be kind of taking out, some of the areas that we're clearing. And if you want to go to the next. This is sort of functionally kind of the meat and potatoes of the project. We're going to adaptively reuse the portion in yellow to both function for office space and for the start of the production line. And then the blue is functionally all of the new addition. And in working with the Planning Commission staff, Dr. Calhoun, we and the councilman and a whole series of other people, Burton Belcar, we actually modified the layout so that we could basically bring all of the truck traffic to supply and send out on the north side off of Hawthorne, and then basically use the balance of the parcels for some of the parking conditions and to kind of hold some green space as a buffer to the residential future plans that would hope to happen further to the east. But in summary, that's kind of where we're going with this. There are a few more renderings of the package further on. This is sort of how the process is set up. Some of the kind of elevations, but I think the renderings at the end show it probably best. Landscape plan, photometric. So the next slide actually is one of the close-ups. So this is that front registry view off of 55th. We are closing off one of the curb access off 55th and then having the parking lot just accessed off of Central for the office staff. Next one. Sort of at the corner, we're keeping a lot of the existing trees that remain on Central and then augmenting those and obviously re-upping some of the landscape along East 55th. And then next one. This shows kind of from the back at the upper left-hand corners where the existing Goodwill building is that we're going to be adding on to in plain. The Snap is in the upper right. And then we've got freezer and one of the things that we were intentionally doing is for the support staff for the project, we basically have a lowered scale element along Central, and we're going to basically encourage a lot of pedestrian because about 50% of the people that work at the plant are from the neighboring area, and many of them do walk or use alternate transportation methods. So we put a large focus on making Central a pedestrian-friendly access point into the plant for most of the employees. So.
Jim, can you just, if they go to the first slide or the last slide, make any comments about the feedback that you got for us that's listed on this slide? How can you address these and
absolutely sure. Because we're facing 55th, the infill piece between the two buildings right now was shown as precast. That's functionally where the some of the system related pieces of the plant are, the ammonia system, the boilers, whatever, that run the plant itself. But we are planning to either do that as a color treatment or we're exploring the opportunity of doing that as sort of a larger mural installation to hold that interstitial space between the two existing buildings. So that's something that we were asked to look at. We are going to be preparing a resubmittal then to go for final review. That's going to include a response to that for that infill portion of the building. The existing building with lighter window treatments, that was just as we're replacing existing windows. There was asked that we could look at what we're replacing those windows with. We're probably going to go to a lighter aluminum frame, which should help brighten up those conditions. There was a question about the number of ADA ramps we had along Central. We are going to lighten that probably with basically using rails instead of masonry construction, which should make it a little less obtrusive in terms of the mass of that of those ramp elements themselves. Site lighting, we're going to revisit. There's a couple of pedestrian paths out of the parking lot that we're going to revisit the parking lot lighting, probably put in something lower than just the building lighting so that we know we have ample safe, secure lighting for the people walking through that pedestrian access condition. The parking we did explore on the call is already probably at or just below the zoning required for it, but it's also based on that 50% ratio. We have about 120 cars for approximately 150 patrons or employees that will be utilizing the parking. So we're intentionally trying to keep that lower. We do have to come back with a color palette just to show the actual colors of what we're using for the precast. And they wanted more information about what are the doors, what are the windows, whatever, which was not included in the schematic presentation, but we're happy to do that. And they just wanted us to know, or they wanted to know how we would respond to the condition of the existing building since we're adaptively reusing it. Fundamentally, the building is in very good shape. There will be new caulking, some tuck pointing, and obviously some pressure washing and cleaning to remove some of the graffiti on it now. But otherwise, the building is in fundamentally sound shape, which is one of the reasons that it was such a good potential fit for the adaptive reuse.
Okay, thank you. Commission members, questions?
Question. Madam Chair, to the applicant, I wasn't here when this project was presented. So are there any environmental issues or hazards with this type of process? Are there live chickens? I don't.
Councilman asked that.
Yes, Councilman Slife addressed that.
Yeah.
All right, I wasn't here, so just check.
But I'm
quite
happy
all
to
right.
step
No.
forward if we need to.
To answer your question, no live chickens. It's
Okay, all right.
to be consistent, so. And if I may, just on the staff side, I see Dr. Calhoun is on, but I would like to add that, this, and I've spoken with Chief Epstein, who's passed this on to the property owner. This was a former site of a Majestic Hotel, which is no longer here, and is an important place in the community. It was a Green Book site for musicians who were coming through, and so part of our goal moving forward is to see if there's a meaningful placekeeping opportunity. And I just wanted to share that with the commission that we would like to have that conversation. And I believe the property owner is open and interested. So.
And it's Black History Month, so.
Yes, thank you.
I just wanted to, I appreciate that you're able to keep the existing Goodwill building. I think it makes a nicer facade along Central. Just a couple of questions. One, you mentioned that a lot of the employees live in the neighborhood, but I don't see any bike racks or anything listed in the landscape plan. So I think that would be good to add in some robust bike racks around the multiple entrances that I see, especially the areas around near the employee entrance. And then what's the deal with this existing residence not in scope that's in the middle of the property? I don't see it on Google Maps. Is that actually there?
It is. So there are two properties that this project sort of wraps around. That probably shows it well enough. So in the upper right.
If you go up to the site plan, like there's a colored site plan, I think shows it most clearly. I'm talking about the one on Hawthorne specifically.
Correct. Correct.
Yeah, that
So
one.
That is an existing home, and that we are trying to be sensitive to its presence of in the neighborhood. That's why we functionally pulled the freezer building away to give more of a green buffer. We are actually using a portion of that for some kind of dry detention area as well. And then on the parking lot side, we are going to be screening with a fence, with heavier landscaping. In the rezoning, the rezoning actually is going to be contiguous underneath the home at this point, so it's going to share the same zoning overall as the balance of the parcel. So we're not quite as constricted in terms of maybe harshly buffering and fencing that condition. There are no windows, obviously, on the freezer side of the building, and we're going to kind of plant up that and create a green space that'll be held, which is functionally what it is now to the west of his property now as an open space. And the only real screening we're going to do is going to be on the parking, well, on both sides of the parking lot. There's a garage at the south end of his property, but on the east side, we're going to basically put something to curb headlights and whatever on that side. But we were not interested in acquiring the property at this point. It's just not part of the scope. So it became something that we had to physically work to accommodate as best as we can to be a good neighbor with.
Madam Chair, I'd like to piggyback on Ms. Clark's comment concerning bike racks. I think we should also be more intentional about how we accommodate other types of transportation, scooters, electric, bikes and things like that, and allow enough room. A lot of times we place bike racks and it's limited, right? You can't really, but I think we should start making room for that type of thing, whether it's in the public rights of way or in parking lots or in building entrances, because it's coming. Every other city I've been to, there's an abundance of scooters out there. Personal scooters, not the ones you rent or lease.
Any other comments, commission members?
I think just in terms of the existing residents, I guess my concern really would just be around like light pollution and any noise and anything like that. So I just think it's something to keep in mind, seeing as there are houses surrounded by this property.
We wouldn't normally do this since it's a design review case, but I do see a hand raised. Is Nicole on? Or maybe that's
planner for the area. I'm the planner for the area, Madam Chair.
Oh, yes. Here we go. Would you like to say?
So thank you. To the commission member, Madam Chair, I would agree with the bike installation. However, I would like to keep it in the parking area so that it would be secure instead of on Central. And then I do want to say that this project has worked with the community, has done extensive work. I would give them an A+ for the circles and the jumps that they had to go through. It's just amazing. And I just wanted to make sure I make a record of this is what we're supposed to be doing. They actually talked with the residents and found out exactly what they wanted surrounding them. So this is not something that was done in a cabin. This was actually done the correct way, and we are still meeting with the community as well about creating a better environment for them as a whole. I just wanted to make sure I said that. Thank you so much.
All right, thank you. We don't need a motion, so you have some more comments if there's any others. I would suggest changing the name of this project because it's confused everyone, like chicken processing plant, like it's like food production is a thing. I'm just being honest, like
Project Renaissance.
It's top secret code name. We only refer to it as Project Renaissance. That's
okay.
Because that is what it's hopefully going to do in this neighborhood. So
right, it's like high-tech food production is a thing, right? So I don't know how it got tagged with that name. So anyway.
But most of the news stories have covered that we're going to be processing chicken, and so obviously, just as Councilman Slife correctly pointed out, I wouldn't choose to live next to one either if that's exactly how it was going down, but this is all boxed, ready to go and be processed. You know, we're not doing any of the nasty parts of this.
I just suggesting some marketing expense, spend some stuff on marketing. That's it. All right. Thank you very much. Director, we're going to table the last one? Are we okay?
Madam Chair, I do believe Winking Lizard is on, so it's up to the commission if you would like to hear this final case before the director's report.
Okay. Is Jim on?
Or should be on.
Jim?
Shortly.
I
think you had a really long. It's
Short.
Yeah.
I believe I heard from the staff member that they are on, perhaps they are not.
Not
then-
Bob?
Yes, Bob Moravitz is here.
Okay. So are you the only one speaking to this matter?
Yeah, I don't see Mr. Callum on.
Okay. Do you swear to tell the truth, the whole truth, and nothing but the truth as you shall answer to the penalty of perjury?
I do.
This is 2022-073. This is the outdoor dining for Winking Lizard at 1300 East 9th Street. If you could present quickly and then also just address the committee recommendation or condition that is outlined here during your presentation, that would be great.
Sure. I'm not sure of the procedure here. Are you going to show slides or?
Yeah, there are slides. I don't know if you can see them. This is
Yes.
This, where they will run through the slides that you submitted. So go ahead.
Yes. This first slide shows the existing conditions of the plaza. You can go to the next slide. This slide shows the new patio that they would like to encompass with a new covered awning area for patrons. You can go to the next slide. This is a detail of that area. The design review committee had asked us to make some modifications, and we've complied with all their requests. We have much less seating, more planters. We have a raised planter bed in the center, and then we have a covered shown there with a covered awning that the structural posts will align with the building posts, just to keep that symmetry, that rhythm going. Next slide, please. This is an overall view of the building. It's very, very, the building is very tall, very, very modernist look. So we were trying to do, this is very, very similar to what was approved previous. They were going to put an addition on the first floor, but it just came out to be too cost prohibitive. So we've duplicated that same lean-to roof, simple lines with a awning material. And there are, in this elevation on the lower left, there is shown some panels of the glass. We have asked to put some opaque covering on because it's basically the back of the bar where there's some tall equipment there. So they'd like to just blacken out a couple windows there, and they will put the Winking Lizard logo on the windows, so it's not just a blank window. Next slide. If you go to the next slide. This was a quick rendering for the board so they could see the columns and the new awning that lines up in the same rhythm as the building columns. We deliberately left off the landscaping just so it's the columns are visible. And I believe that's all.
Okay.
Point of order, Madam Chair, if the applicant could state their relationship to the project, that would be helpful for the record.
I'm the project architect for the Winking Lizard.
Okay, thank you. Any questions or comments from the commission members?
Yes, Madam Chair, to the applicant, is this just a fair weather venue? Are there like indirect heaters or anything on the outside?
No, yes, it's only used for it. There's no heaters outside at this. They had not planned on doing that.
Yeah, I know we live in Cleveland, but it's nice if you can activate the space for more than 2.5 months out of the year. So,
Oh, they totally agree. They really wanted to put the addition on, but it just,
well,
the price was
not
over, the price was over $600,000. They couldn't
not in
afford it.
addition, but over the covered bar, you can incorporate indirect heat, and you can actually sit outside underneath that canopy during inclement weather, or cold weather, I should say, or fall weather. That's all.
Yeah, yeah. I will definitely let them know that. I know they have, what is it, 16 restaurants in the area. I'm sure they're familiar with that, but at this moment they hadn't proposed to do that.
Okay.
But I'm
No,
sure that's a
it
good
would-
suggestion they
It
would
would be
like.
nice,
Yes,
especially during football season, right?
100% agree.
Okay, thank you.
Sure.
Maybe you can just take that back to them, that.
Absolutely.
The idea of heaters under the canopy or such.
Yeah.
Post-COVID, August makes a lot of sense, if you're in New
Yeah,
York City,
Yes.
people actually prefer it, to be honest, so.
Yeah. Yeah.
So maybe just suggest that we highly support such an intervention.
Okay.
Commission members, any other questions or motion?
Yeah, I move approval with conditions that the applicant is to submit a complete application, including materials and color samples, landscaping plans, summer, winter renderings, as a pedestrian would approach from the left and right, showing the site context for staff review. If staff is unable to approve, the applicant should return to the design review committee.
Second.
Did you want to add the recommendation about exploring heaters as a recommendation or not? This-
Sure, I like heaters. Yeah. And would ask the applicant to explore heaters for this outdoor venue.
I concur in that second in the second.
Thank you.
Second, all right, call the roll.
Anthony,
Yes.
Downing,
Yes.
Blucher,
Yes.
Curry,
Yes.
Craig Scott,
Yes.
Sheila Clark,
Yes.
Clark.
Yes.
You're so quick.
Motion carries. Thank you, guys.
Thank you very
thanks for the Project, and the investment. Director's report.
Yes, thank you. First of all, I do want to thank the chair for doing the challenge of chairing from home. So we're thankful for your leadership and we hope you get better soon. And hope to see you in person next time. I also want to thank you for your patience. We've had quite a few technical difficulties this week since IT changed a few procedures for us. So we weren't able to get some items out on time, but are working on improving and making sure that we have the resources and approvals we need for the next time. So thank you everybody for your patience. Really quickly, did want to update the commission as well as anyone in the public. There were a few big news releases this week. The Department of Community Development, in coordination with Councilwoman Spencer and city planning staff, did release the request for proposals for the redevelopment of the former CMSD school, Watterson Lake in Detroit Shoreway. One really unique aspect about this request for proposals is that community engagement occurred on the front end of the RFP. And so the proposal request itself integrates that feedback so that proposers will keep in mind the desires of the community. The second is that the Department of Community Development released the application for the $34.45 million housing fund, which is related to ARPA as well as a few city bonds, sources. This is a fund that is a focus on affordable and equitable development. The application includes criteria based on evidence of community engagement, site design, property standards, distance to transit, preservation of historic structures, tree canopy restoration, green building standards, and on. And you can access the application online through the mayor's website and see all the different questions and criteria that are asked of proposers. It's really critical that, if we're going to be dispersing ARPA funds, through the administration and council, that there is a robust set of proposals that will address many of these, aspects of place that we want to see. And I do want to mention, there is a focus on affordable and equitable development, but this also will include market rates. So sort of the whole swath, and it is a gap financing fund. So, you know, the majority of funding should be there and the project should be ready to go. It's just getting the project over the finish line. Next slide, please. So zoning code updates. We did receive robust input for the townhouse code. And the last meeting I shared that there was going to be a draft released today. Staff does need more time to review and really consider all of the, the comments. So we are going to defer that an additional 2 weeks, and we're hoping that we'll have a draft prepared for you to review on Friday, February 17th. We also received robust input for the small changes to the zoning code. So if you remember, those were the up to 9 different pieces to help streamline or make our zoning code more efficient. Staff is currently reviewing the feedback and will bring the changes back to the Planning Commission at a later date. Next slide. These are a few community engagement opportunities just to update the commission and members of the public. The Buckeye Plan, which you all approved last fall, they're entering the planning and implementation stage. So in February, there are 4 or 5 opportunities to engage, community visioning sessions, partner strolls, panels, a neighborhood unity happy hour, and this is being spearheaded by Burton Bell Carr. We're excited about the future of Buckeye. Next slide. This is about Cheers, which is our Metro Parks and Port Authority led project. City of Cleveland is a partner in this. This is the Eastside Lakefront Harbor Embayment Resilience Project, which would pretty much add a park to the east side between 55th and MLK. And you all approved the master plan concept back in 2021. It's entering refinement, and there are quite a few opportunities for design, design feedback. One was yesterday, and there will be one tomorrow at Kvachic Rec Center in St. Clair Superior.
Director Wong, I attended with my wife, and
Yes.
it was pretty well attended. However, what I noticed, most of the people there weren't indigenous to the neighborhood. There were other stakeholders, there were some city people, and then I thought to myself, I think these open houses are fine, but I think we need to figure out different ways and more meaningful ways to reach the community. Because a lot of times people, they have kids, they gotta collect their kids, go feed them. So, and I know Saturday might look different, and I think there also should be some consideration, in my opinion, relative to a little bit more discourse and not like, we're informing you, let's put a dot on what you like. That's kind of passé, in my opinion. I know you haven't created that, and I know it's coming from Metro Parks. I just think this is a big deal. This is a really big deal. There's a lot of nervous folks out there for lots of reasons, because many of the things that get built in the cities aren't for the people who live in the community. They see nice shiny boxes, and that creates other disparities or stress on the community. So just a thought.
Yep.
Just a thought.
Thank you. I will certainly bring that feedback as we continue the process and hope for, beyond community open houses, we've learned, simply that it's one format and sometimes needs to be done for federal or state regulation purposes, but that we need to really supplement these open houses with much more direct, informal engagement. So I'll definitely bring that feedback.
Thank you. I think too, when a lot of the planning and engagement happened is during COVID, and so, and I think just need to re-engage.
Thank you. All right, I think this might be the final slide. Yes. For the next meeting, we will have a robust agenda. We will be seeing a special informational presentation. As you may be aware, the Bedrock Development Plan was released in the fall, and we've requested that they come before this body first for an informational presentation so that you can, give feedback, ask questions. We have never seen a development plan of this scale, or I won't say never, but it's been a while, or we haven't seen development plans of this scale, which includes both development as well as infrastructure and other elements. So it's really important that, to me, the Planning Commission sees it more than once as they work towards adoption of the development plan. And so we would encourage that you be mindful of the time for the next meeting. We may end up stretching to noon. And so if you could please plan accordingly, that would be great. Any questions?
So all of the other presentations will happen before the bedrock
Which brings lunch.
Yeah. All right, I think that's it.
Thank you.
Awesome. One quick comment, I do have physical copies of public comment for the small changes zoning code that I'll pass out after adjournment.
Anything else good for the order? Any other things commission members want to ask or say or suggest? I will tell you, it's very hard to chair from abroad when you're all there, because I can't see anyone who wants to speak. I don't know who wants to speak. So I've definitely today, it has made it very clear that this is not the best way to do it. So, so I hope to be back next meeting.
Madam Chair, I move to adjourn.
Thank you. See you guys.
See you. Bye. You know, at the height of COVID, wanted to get an outdoor heater, you know, one of the lamps, and they were.
No.